So hello, everyone, and welcome to the webinar. We're excited to have you all here this evening. We'll be having a short conversation. With Oscar Sosa, the site manager for St. Michael's College. This is exciting for many reasons. One is that Oscar has been working with the academies for 5 years, so he has a lot of experience to draw from tonight, and he has a lot to share. Another reason it's exciting is that this is the first summer ever where all 5 of our language academies will be hosted at the same location. So Oscar will be in charge of all 5 academies at St. Michael's College, which is located just outside of Burlington. Previously, historically, we've had 2 different sites where we've had 3 of our academies at one, 2 at another. So we're excited to be locating them all in one place this summer. I think we're going to get a lot of additional benefits to having everyone in one place. And it's exciting that Oscar was available and could hop on and share with us. So just to give you guys an idea of how this conversation will go, for about 15 minutes, I'll be talking to Oscar, asking him questions that will give him a chance to share about his experiences. And then we'll do a short Q&A at the end of the webinar. So you'll see a pane where you're logged into the webinar where you can ask questions. So please do feel free to hop in and ask questions at any point. We won't get to the questions until the Q&A begins, but we're certainly eager and available to answer those questions once the Q&A does begin. But I also want to say we are very conscious of everyone's time, so we are going to keep this event to 30 minutes. This is supposed to be a short webinar, and we're committed to keeping it that way. If for some reason you have a question that doesn't get answered tonight, please rest assured that our enrollment manager will be reaching out to everyone to make sure that all of your questions do get answered. And if for some reason you don't hear from us, please follow up with us directly. We're committed to making sure any uncertainties people have are addressed. So whether you're already enrolled or you're considering enrolling, we want to make sure we answer all your questions. So that being said, let's go ahead and dive in. So Oscar, before we start, and I should introduce myself, apologies for that. My name is Zach Dukowitz, and I'm on the marketing team with the academies. I've been with the academies going on over 3 years. This will be my 3rd summer. So all that being said, Oscar, I'm wondering if we can hand it off to you and you could just introduce yourself briefly and talk briefly about your experience with the academies, and then we'll dive into the questions.
Sure. Hi, everyone. Oscar Sosa here. I am the summer site manager for Middlebury Interactive Languages Language Academy. I started working with the academies in 2011. I'm entering actually my 7th year, Zach.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Wow, that's okay. It's all good. So.
Very exciting. And tell us a little bit about your background with language acquisition. I know you have a deep background there.
Sure. Well, I've been a language teacher, or have been a language teacher for over 20 years. I started in 1995 teaching Spanish at an independent school in Connecticut. Sometime in between then and now, I earned a master's degree from Middlebury College. And that's actually where I first learned of this program. When I was in the graduate program, there was a lot of excitement around the idea of a residential language immersion program for teens, one that was similar to the graduate program. And then in 2011, I joined the team.
Wonderful. And, you know, as someone who has that experience of having attended the graduate program at Middlebury College, which of course their pedagogy is the pedagogy we draw from in the academies. So as someone who's had that experience and then also worked closely with the academies, could you speak to how the graduate school experience and then what we do for high school students, what the similarities are and then also what the differences are?
That's a good question. So the language pledge is what unites the 2 academies, right? It's what is the similarity. The challenge of negotiating a language without the support of your primary language, which primary for many of our students is English, that's pretty much the same, right? Just like that commitment and trying to your best, trying to negotiate some type of, whether it's, pass me the ball or pass me the salt, or trying to, share how you're feeling with a teacher. When you're beginning a language and you commit to it, that part's the same. I think the difference, which is a pretty significant difference, centers around who we are developmentally when we choose to take that pledge. I chose to do it as an adult, and I think that's very different than when a teenager chooses to do that. So teenagers, in addition to trying to negotiate the challenges around the language, right, the academic, like the language itself, they're also trying to negotiate their self-identity. They kind of have, many of our students, because they're early in their language acquisition, they kind of have to give up who they are. If you accept the language pledge and you decide that you're not going to speak in English, and you're a level 1 student, level 2 student, even level 3 student, it's hard to really, convey that you're a funny person and you're fun to be around and you have jokes, like all of that stuff. It's a challenge. Teenagers are, developmentally significantly devoted to their peer relationships, and those peer relationships are, developed through social interactions. So the language pledge makes that a great challenge for the kids. As adults, we're able to withstand this, and we can hold on to the pledge. But the teenagers, they have greater difficulty. Hello. Zach, if we're still on the line, I cannot hear anything.
Hey, sorry, is this better?
Yes.
Okay, sorry about that. So I was just saying that I know one of the challenges that our students face is homesickness. You've spoken to me some about how we work with students around homesickness and how we support our students. And I was just wondering if you can talk a little bit about what we do to prepare students for that, and then also how we support them, throughout the academy.
Yeah, so we have a director of residential life. So for the folks, listening, I started off as an assistant language director for the academy and then moved into the director of residential life role. And I was director of residential life for about 3 years. The director of residential life works with the residential advisors and the teachers as well. One of the things that we do from that part of our program is that we train the RAs to recognize and understand what homesickness is. One of the very first things we do is we normalize it. We talk about it. We recognize, we let everyone know that you will feel something, especially if it's, hello?
Hey, we're here.
Okay, especially if it's your first time being away from home. So we help the RAs coach. We teach them how to, we practice coaching the young people on ways to cope. We work on building, social connections, really trying to recognize when someone's not feeling 100%, and then try to intentionally make some social connections for them. Because again, as I said before, that's what teenagers live for. Then we try to give the kids some perspective on the duration of the program. On paper, 4 weeks either seems like a long time or it feels short. It's short. So we put that into perspective for them. And then just, we do our best to try to acclimate them as quickly as possible. Homesickness begins to abate after about, 10 to 13 days in the program.
That's really helpful. I know, given all of your experience and you've worn different hats at the academies, I'm wondering if you can share what you love about the academies, what some of the things that you think are great and make you want to come back.
Oh, wow. You said this was only 30 minutes. So, there's a ton of things I love about the academy. We can start from the end. We can start at the end of the program. I love seeing how the kids who in the beginning thought that this was going to be impossible, that they, there's no way they're going to be able to make friends in another language, and, they're only level 1. And at the end, they're crying, and they're crying in target language. It's awesome. It really is heartwarming to see the growth that the students make during the summer. That part, I can continue to do that for the rest of my life, just for that alone. Um, it's great being around like-minded folk. You think about, in high school, language is a subject area. At the academy, it's life. I mean, we do everything around, trying to increase our ability in a language. But in high school, it's a class. It's, maybe you meet 5 times a week. But, in the program, we're meeting every hour. And we're trying to do everything we can to enjoy ourselves in the language. So that part's awesome. As a professional, I mean, I love being around colleagues and other professionals who are also committed to language acquisition and committed to teenagers and their sort of happiness and their growth. It's Vermont. Vermont's beautiful. I'm a New Yorker, and I love going up to Vermont. I just think it's great up there. The weather's fantastic. It does get hot there in the summer, right? But it's Vermont. It doesn't get hot for too long, and then we can recover always in the evenings. So I mean, there's a ton of things about the academy that I like.
Thanks for that. And I have a question for you. Again, drawing from all the different experiences that you've had, are you excited? I mentioned in the intro, this is the first summer where we're going to have all 5 language academies in one location, and you're the site manager. What excites you about that? Is that unique, or is it just 5 instead of 3? I'm just wondering if you can speak to what you think might come from having everything at one place.
There's a lot of energy. So even with 3 academies, they like to compete with one another. They like to, it's almost like you can imagine them as teams. And there's a friendly rivalry that always surfaces amongst the academies. We have a field day during the summer. The kids participate in all sorts of activities. And we actually do that with 5 academies. When we were 2 separate campuses, we would invite the other campus to come up and participate. And that day was always awesome. Because, I mean, the more people you see doing what you do, right, which is struggle in the language and learn it and enjoy it, you're just surrounded by more people who share the same passion. So the energy level is going to be fantastic.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, I'm so excited just to have everything in one place. And like you said, I think it's going to lead to some, the word synergy gets overused, but I think some pretty amazing synergy, I'll go ahead and say. I have a question for you, sort of nuts and bolts, and you already touched on this a little bit when you're talking about homesickness, but do you have any advice for our parents that are listening? Anything that you think they should be thinking about, or, that you've heard parents say, "Oh, I wish I had known this, ahead of time," something like that. Any advice you can share?
Yeah. So I'll share from my position as the summer site manager. All right. So as the summer site manager, I work closely with the director of residential life, and we do get a lot of phone calls. We tend to get a lot of phone calls after the first call home time. So this is where this advice is coming from. So we just have to remember as adults that the way we perceive the challenge of the language pledge is different than how the teenagers are actually going to experience it, right? So when we're sitting at home and thinking about the program, say, "Oh, the language pledge, can you stay in target language for the entirety of the program?" Sure. But the actual living through that is a challenge. It can be done, but it's hard. And the first week is the hardest. Right? It's the beginning, right? If you can think about working out, if you have never worked out and you work out that first week, you will be sore, right? And so if you can imagine, a soreness from language acquisition, well, it's that first week. That first week isn't easy, and they're going to be sore. So that first call home tends to be right in the middle of all of that. So if you hear, as a parent, if you hear distress regarding food, dorms, weather, friends, whatever, right? Wherever you may hear that distress, always know that behind that, especially if you have a child who's a beginner, is a teenage brain trying to make sense of a whole new, world, a whole new language, a whole new everything, including a whole new identity. So the beginning for some of these kids who are, they might be going through homesickness, they might be stressed because they're missing their home, but it's like a lot of it's exacerbated because they're a level 1, they're a level 2, and it's the challenge of, okay, I'm here again. It's day 6. I want to make friends. I really want to talk to that person that, it's in level 4, but I don't know what to say except, ¿Cómo estás? ¿Dónde está el baño? Right? It's like they have to get through that, and they tend to get through that in week 2, and week 3 it gets easier, and by week 4 when they're flowing, it's time to go home. So just if the parents are listening, just know that first call home time. If you have a kid who's advanced in the language, it's always a lot easier. But if you have a true beginner, you might hear some stress.
That's really helpful. I think just there's uncertainty about what it's going to look like, right, day to day. And of course, for some of our students, it might be their first time away for this extended period. And so I think the more knowledge that, students and parents can have going into it of what it might feel like is just really helpful. And I'll share, as someone who's also done Spanish immersion abroad in Guatemala, my tongue was exhausted. I remember the first 3 or 4 days, my tongue was exhausted, and my brain, I just felt more mentally fatigued than I'd ever experienced in my life. And I was really hungry, and I wasn't even purely immersed. Like, we did 8 hours a day, but then you could go do whatever you want, speak English. There was no commitment like the language pledge. So I can speak to this as an adult who's been through the experience that, like you said about working out, it's like if you went from a couch potato to doing 100 burpees a day or something, it's a real transition.
Yeah, I mean, these kids, if they take language at school, they went from like power walking to like super duper CrossFit. I mean, you can just imagine they went from the little light exercises to like the heavy duty. No offense to my language teachers out there, because I am a language teacher as well. But when we do it, for 45 minutes to an hour, and then these kids are doing it for 24 hours, there's a difference.
Yeah, huge difference. I mean, yeah, even just it's amazing how much hungrier you get. You can experience how your brain is burning calories, which
absolutely. The body's going to demand a whole lot of water and a whole lot of nutrition. That's a challenge. That's another challenge for the summer. But that's on our end as the residential educators. We're teaching the kids that they have to nourish their body during the summer, that they have to stay hydrated. Because they're feeling the things that you just described, but they may not necessarily recognize that it's because they're learning a new language. They could just think that it's because they were playing soccer that afternoon. Or that they got up early and they went to bed late or whatever, right? But we know it's your brain, just demanding food because you've been working it hard all day long and all afternoon and all evening, and you probably started dreaming in Spanish or French or German. When all of that happens, your body gets taxed.
Yeah, and it's just good to know that going into this. So we're a little over 15 minutes with the interview I've been doing with Oscar. I just want to put it out there. If there's any parents with questions right now, please do hop in and ask your questions. I'm going to give everyone just a moment to hop into the Q&A pane. You can also hop into the chat pane, really, whatever you have up. We're checking both. So let us know, but otherwise I've got plenty more questions for Oscar. If we don't hear from anyone in just a moment, we'll just forge ahead. Here's a question, Oscar, actually. This is, I think, a helpful question. So are people who are absolute beginners, are they allowed to speak any English at all to communicate?
That's a flexible question. Right? I guess the answer is flexible. We do ramp into the first opening hours or a day or so of the program. There is a little bit of English spoken until the academy directors or the language directors say, okay, we're in language pledge now, right? So there is a sort of a transition period there. Throughout the week, the academy director or the language director has the ability to, say, okay, so then we're going to relax the language pledge right now. And that's at their discretion. I've seen in the previous years, the language directors do that for like a weekend event or something like that. If there's an urgent emergency or something like that, a student's in distress and wants to speak English, they can always come to the director of residential life or to the site office, and then we'll speak to them in English, right? Because it's about their needs first. But if it's a moment of like in the classroom, then probably not.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I mean, what I'm hearing too is it's sort of it could be case by case, but it's sort of reasonable. It's not so draconian that students need to be, I guess, afraid. It's, if you're uncomfortable, or obviously if there's an emergency, safety comes first. And and yeah, students can take care of themselves.
And I like to operate within the spirit of the language pledge, right? So we're not going to use English because you want to learn how to play the game of soccer, right? So that's not one of those moments, right? If you want to come speak to me in English because you're concerned about your roommate, then that seems a little bit more reasonable.
Yeah. So we had a parent write in asking about how parents can stay on top of what students are doing from one day to the next. And I can actually answer that question since I work on the marketing team and head up those parent communication efforts. So every day we're posting pictures, we're posting blog posts. I believe 3 times a week is going to be the cadence for this summer. So we're constantly on Facebook, constantly on the blogs that are devoted to each academy, uploading pictures. We have actually 2 interns, social media interns, that will be at St. Michael's College this summer, and they're constantly going around taking pictures, documenting what's happening and sharing it out, primarily all on Facebook. So as often as we can, we're uploading big batches of photos. There's folders for each individual academy so parents can go through and see the pictures that we're uploading. And it's worth calling out, these are college students taking the pictures. These are sort of candid, off-the-cuff pictures. And I'm saying that just because occasionally we'll get a parent pointing out that the pictures are not, professional quality, and that's because we're usually taking about 100 a day. And so we do get professional photographers to come in, but we can't get them to come in and take 100 pictures every single day. So just want to mention that. The last thing to say about communication with parents is we send out a weekly newsletter that has a roundup of all the photos and all the blog posts that have been shared out that week. So if for some reason, you don't have time to hop into Facebook and sort of poke around, we'll be sending out links so that you can stay on top of what's happening. One other question I have for you, Oscar. Can you speak a little bit about the World Language Expo, which happens toward the end of the academy?
Yeah. So each academy has, throughout the week, they have a series of courses that are called cultural exploration classes, right? And so the students with one of their language teachers will study some element of the culture, the target culture. So they might learn things related to dance, food, the arts. The World Expo is the showcase of all of that learning. And so we, as a large academy, all 5 academies in this case, will come and we'll watch performances and listen to music and just see all the cultural elements that have come out of the instruction. It's beautiful. It's wonderful. I saw. I think you may have had some photos that went through the slides there. But there are a lot of performances, a lot of music, and the kids. It's a nice showcase. The kids. It's really surprising. It's one of those moments that you ask me, what do I like to come back for? It's one of those moments, right? It's almost like the second to last day of the program or the third to last day of the program, and the kids really shine. Just performing the cultural elements of what they've been learning.
That's awesome. And I'll also say, yeah, I believe you're right that we did have some photos from there on, and we document it really well. We take as many pictures as we can. I believe that we've live streamed it on Facebook the last few summers, and we'll certainly be doing our best to live stream it again. It's always an issue of timing and Wi-Fi quality is really what it comes down to, but we do our best to make sure the parents get to see really all the accomplishments their kids have made over the 4 weeks of the program. We just had a question come in. We're wondering if you can talk about, we have a parent asking if you can talk about health and safety during the academies.
Yes, I can. We'll start with health and then I'll move into safety. So we have a nurse, an assistant nurse in the program that helps manage sort of the first aid and the health needs of the students, including the dispensing of their medications, should they need it. We are, fortunately, St. Michael's is in a great location with urgent care and hospitals nearby, minutes away. We also coordinate and have a very close relationship with the campus for security for campus safety, and they're tied into the 911 dispatch. So any of our calls that are urgent in nature both go to St. Michael's security team, which is fantastic, and 911. So it's a very close relationship there. And, you know, and there have been times in the past where we've had to call emergency services, and everything's been prompt and well organized by the college. We bring in the St. Michael's security team to help us with our orientation with our RAs as well. And we do talk about lockdowns and evacuations and all the safety things that we need to consider being on a college campus.
Sure. That's really helpful. And so we just had another question come in. Can you talk about off-campus trips, like field trips that students might go on during the academies, during the domestic academies, of course?
I can't talk about it for 2019 because I don't know about them just yet. I can talk about what they've done in the past. So in the past, the Chinese Academy went to Albany last year to see some cultural exhibits that were there, and also sample some cuisine. Another academy went to a state park. They visited Middlebury College, but the kids could see the adults who are learning the language, see the environment, see that there's other people that do this, where it was founded more like the idea, where the idea was born out of, and then they just enjoy time at a state park. And so there could be trips like that, similar to that. Some for entertainment and some for cultural purposes. I'm sorry, that's the general answer. Sort of like I hope it's not too vague, but those trips get organized by academy directors, and they change year in and year out.
Sure. Yeah, no, and that's really helpful. And of course, since we're all on one campus this summer, we won't be traveling for the field day. So I mean, that's one less trip, but it sounds like we will be getting out there. So that's good to know. Right.
So last year when we had the academy in Pulteney, one of their trips was to come up to Burlington, which for us is a regular afternoon activity. The kids will have an opportunity to go down to Burlington as well and experience that main street. I forget the name of it right now at this moment. French students traveling to Montreal. No trips. Well, that trip is just a little too far, a little too complicated, because we also get students who come international, and so we want to make sure that we have trip opportunities for everyone, and things that wouldn't require necessarily visas or any kind of complications at the border.
Right. One other question that we had come in. This came in via email. We're wondering, parents are curious about and students are too, but what personal time looks like. And specifically, we had someone ask, my daughter runs cross country. How much time do students have for personal activities, and sort of what does that personal time look like?
Yeah, personal time is always, it's always at a premium. Everyone wants a lot of personal time. They'll get personal time. So in the schedule, there'll be a block. It's usually like after academics, sometime before dinner. It's either before dinner or after dinner. The academy will decide that. Or they'll give kids about an hour and a half, maybe even 2 hours to just to relax and have some downtime. The one thing I would tell parents is that, it's downtime in target language. Sometimes for some kids, that downtime may not necessarily feel like it was downtime. Yeah. So they went to go run cross country, but maybe their RA wanted to run with them and say, do you want to go run together? They said that in target language, right? Right. But yeah, no, I'm a big fan of students taking that time to de-stress. If that hasn't come across yet, I apologize, but I do want kids to take those breaks because it helps with homesickness, and it helps with language acquisition. So anything that's related to fitness, I really try to ensure that the director of Res Life and the academy directors find time for that. But the schedule in general has those 2 hours throughout the day. They have their meal times, which are relaxed. And then they also have, at the end of the day, they have the dorm life. So dorm life begins around 8:45 p.m. With lights out around 10:30 or 11, depending on the age group.
That's really helpful. And I think it helps parents maybe imagine the day a little more. And, you mentioned just now, I think this is going to be the last question we have time for, but you mentioned time during meals. We just had a parent chime in asking whether students eat together by language, and whether there are, well, how we address food allergies during meals.
So the good thing about being on a college campus is that the college has to address food allergy, and they're mandated to do that. So they might have a separate kitchen that separates the products for students who have celiac disease or staying away from gluten. Students do eat together by language. So the language time, this is a good thing for the parents. Lunchtime and the meal times are language learning times. So we're an academy, but it's both informal learning and formal learning. And so the informal learning environment is going to be those meal times. It's going to be the relaxed time, right? The rest periods. It's going to be the dorm life. So yeah, they eat together by language, and St. Michael's does accommodate for all allergies, including celiac disease.
Awesome, thank you, Oscar. So this parent who just wrote in was also asking if there's other students on a gluten-free diet specifically. The answer to that is that we don't know. The enrollment manager would be the person who has specific information about allergies and what students are coming into the academy with. So the best thing to do would be to reach out to the enrollment manager. But as I mentioned, the enrollment manager, his name's John Weibel, he'll also be following up with everyone. So that's a good opportunity to ask those more specific questions about whether there's other students with certain kinds of food allergies, certain kinds of interests in different sports, or things like that. So Oscar, I just want to say thank you so very much. We're going to wrap it up now simply because we want to stick to the 30-minute slot. We know everyone's busy. We really want to honor everyone's time. But Oscar, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge with us.
You're welcome. It was great speaking with you.
Same here. So again, we'll be in touch. And thanks again, everyone, for joining. Thank you. And that's a wrap for this evening, but we'll look forward to continuing the conversation when John, the enrollment manager, reaches out. So take care, everyone, and good night.
Good night.